activation energy. Activation energy, which we define as the minimum amount of energy needed to start a reaction. The minimum amount of energy needed to start a reaction. The minimum amount of energy needed to start a reaction. And in this example, let me say, for example, that my activation energy is here. Always remember that this axis is a kinetic energy. So let's say that this is the minimum amount of energy that is needed to start a reaction. Let me label it EA. That's the minimum. So in other words, if you look at that minimum there, if you look at the graph there, you can see that there are particles here. There are fraction of particles here. In other words, there are fewer particles that possesses high kinetic energy. Remember, this is the minimum, so everything on the right here, it has sufficient energy, and those one on the left doesn't have sufficient energy. And let me use the blue. So it means that all the particles, the rest of the particles, which are many of them, it means that the rest of particles which we have on this side, this fraction, the remaining fraction here, it means they don't have sufficient energy. In other words, they have insufficient energy for the reaction to occur. And remember, we talked about collision theory. Collision theory is saying that before a reaction will take place, the particle of the reactant, they must collide. And through that collision must be effective. In other words, if the collision is effective, it means they have sufficient energy for the reaction to start. Sufficient in the sense that we are comparing them to the minimum amount of energy, which is our activation energy. So it's a common thing in exam that if you come here, you should know that this area, you should be able to know that this area represents a fraction of particles with enough energy. Some will call it percentage, whichever one. The percentage, a fraction of the particle with sufficient energy. And this